Here a portrait of Marcel Proust, and of course the view of Delft. In his 1927 novel, Remembrance of Things Past, Proust's writer-protagonist, whose name was Bergotte, and who was thought to be a thinly disguised self-portrait, actually dies in front of the view of Delft, after having made the devastating realization that nothing in his life's work as a writer has matched up to the smallest, seemingly most banal detail in Vermeer's painting, the little yellow patch of wall on the right side of the composition. And I've shown you the patch that caused such trouble on the upper right. And I'll read you this moment of revelation. This is Bergotte in the gallery, looking at the view of Delft. Quote, "His dizziness increased. He fixed his gaze like a child upon a yellow butterfly that it wants to catch, on the precious little patch of wall. That's how I ought to have written," he said. "My last books are too dry. I ought to have made my language precious, like this little patch of yellow wall." He then faints on the settee in the gallery and has a vision of a celestial pair of scales in which his life appears in one of the pans, while the patch of wall, inevitably heavier, appears in the other, and he then falls to the floor to his death. There could not really be a better example of the elevation of Vermeer to something perfect, unattainable, universal, and almost unworldly than this passage. So the question really is, why Vermeer? What is it about Vermeer's paintings that has elicited such dramatic responses? Why not Peter de Hoogh, whom we've seen, or Gerrit Douw? The answer seems to lie as much in what Vermeer omitted as in what he actually depicted. Philip Hale, the author of the first American monograph on Vermeer, put it succinctly, quote, "Rembrandt, the painter of mystery, is no mystery to us, while Vermeer, the painter of daylight, is engulfed in darkness," end quote. The lack of documentary evidence about Vermeer's biography and of course his small oeuvre allowed for much speculation. And for those in the early to mid-20th century, this was translated into what they perceived as Vermeer's fundamentally modern aesthetic. Thoreau's Sphinx of Delft, then, was framed as a proto-modernist, a painter who favored style over substance, and whose concerns were aesthetic rather than narrative. Art historian and museum curator Willem Valentiner attempted to explain why Vermeer was so superior to other Dutch genre painters. He used phrases such as perfection of surface and perfect harmony, qualities that he argued gave Vermeer's paintings a modern spirit. And I'll quote from his 1909 study of the artist. "Vermeer's figures seem to lead a detached existence, apart from joy or sorrow. They are in themselves almost expressionless, and only clothed in the lovely outward sheen which touches their simple life with mystery. There is no deep spirituality in this art. Its perfection is purely aesthetic."